For these sections, I'm going to discuss or talk about mind and body integrations, or how our physical bodies and our feelings, our minds are related to each other. Simply explained to this is for us to look at another system which is hidden inside of us, or the nervous systems. We have nerve systems that govern all the reactions, so it's work involuntaries and voluntaries. Our nerve systems have mainly two systems, the peripherals and the central, or the brain and spinal cord systems. So central nerve systems is what here right there in the nerve tracts of our spinal cords that runs from the brain downward through the spinal columns and then spreading out around the whole systems. So these nerve systems react or control the body reactions towards the sensory inputs as a responsive actions of the peripheral systems. So the peripheral nerve systems, or the PNS, has both autonomic, which means it controls the inner organs of our bodies, and somatics, that control the external actions of our bodies like muscles and skin. The ANS itself has a subset, has two babies, which is the sympathetics and parasympathetics, or the SNS and the PNS nerve systems. The sympathetic nerve systems is what give us the arousing desire or the energies to do things, or give us a kind of pushing effects. And the parasympathetics is what calming ourselves down and make us feel in a calmer mode or resting mode. Parasympathetic nerve systems and sympathetic nerve systems. Let's go to the parasympathetic nerve systems, or the PNS, first. So the functions of the PNS is responsible for the body's rest and digest functions. It controls the homeostasis of our bodies, so it gives our body at ease. For the sympathetic nerve systems, or the SNS, it controls the body responses to a perceived message or the perceived threat that is responsible for the fight or flight that we have heard. With these two systems, so these two systems, PNS and SNS, are parts of the ANS, or the autonomic nerve systems, which is responsible for the involuntary functions of human bodies. So all our inner organs are involuntaries, which means it cannot be controlled consciously from the force of our thinking or the force of our brain. The two systems work together to maintain vital bodily functions. So if these two systems are working well together, we will have a balanced systems of the whole bodies. So it's resulting in homeostasis, stasis, or the natural balance of the body systems. Let's see the example of what these two things are doing in our bodies. So the SNS will dilate the pupils of your eyes, which means it makes it wider, and it also accelerates your heartbeat. It also inhibits the digestive activities of our intestines and the stomachs. It also stimulates glucose, and it releases glucose into our systems. It also helps stimulate the secretions of the epinephrines. Another word is the endocrine, is the adrenaline systems, or the adrenaline modes that give us that energize us. So parasympathetics is what contracts the pupils. It helps slow down our heartbeats, and it also stimulates the digestive activities as well. So in order to be able to maintain these two modes of the systems, there are certain ways that we could help balancing our body systems. To understand the nerves more, in conclusions, the body uses both electrical and chemical systems to create homeostasis. So the CNS, or the central nerve systems, is made up of branches of nerves that carry messages to and from the PNS. So when the PNS sends the message, hey, it's hot, the actions of the CNS is to control your hands by bringing your hands back. So that's how they are working together. The peripheral nerve systems is composed of the autonomic nerve systems, or the ANS, and the peripheral nerve systems, or the PNS. The ANS is further divided into sympathetics, or activating mode, and the parasympathetics, or the calming nerve systems. These divisions are activated by glands and organs in the endocrine systems. The specific nerves include sensories, neurons, motor neurons, and interneurons. Each have specific functions. The spinal cords may bypass the brain by responding rapidly to the reflex. So we have this, what is called reflex. It's so reflex, you can see the reflex of your bodies when your body reacts to a certain things without having you to be aware or like acknowledge that actions. So the reflex should already been developed since babyhood. In children, sometimes doctors and occupational therapists would give practice of yoga in order to activate and also balancing out and stimulates this reflex response, because they think that during the past life of a particular patient, they have lost some types of reflex reactions. So throughout the movement, it could help. But how? In working with children, we do what is called sensory stimulations. Sensory stimulations activities is basically activating your neurons, your nerves, and your communication layers, communication wires in your bodies in order to bring it into balance. So our body here, yes, we have 5 senses as we know, and some of you might have heard of this 7 sense theories already. So in 7 sense theories, apart from so we will talk about 7 sense theory in next slide, but let's cover the quick definitions of the sensory integration. So it is the neurological process that organizes sensations from one's bodies from the environment around us and make it possible to use the body to make adaptive responses within the environment. In order to do this, your brain must be registered, selects, interpret, compare, and associates with all the sensory information in a flexible, constantly changing pattern. So your brain and your neurons in the cells is like electrolytes everywhere. Receptors over our body here pick up sensories of the world outside or the environments outside. So these sensories stimuli or stimulates, and then processed or organized by our central nerve systems. People with autism often have difficult processing this sensory information, so this may result in an individual being stressed or anxious or sometimes feels physical pain. So an individual may be undersensitive or hyposensitive or hypersensitive. It is important to remember that some with the ASD may have fluctuate between being too much or being too hypo or under, or being too much or hypersensitive. So I would say that personally 95% of the time I am oversensitive although I have experience under sensitivities, particularly with touch and balance. Okay, so sensory processing. This brain received and interpret and then creates or organize the input from out of the activity senses or of the active senses at any given moment. For a single activities in a daily life, we need an optimal organization of incoming sensory information and process it, and then the central nerve systems is incorrect and then appropriate. So if the incoming sensory information remains unorganized, the process of the central nerve systems is messed up, and then an appropriate growth oriented and planned reactions or behavior would help make it better. So sensory processing is the brain receiving, interpreting, and organizing input from all the active sense at any given moment. How many senses do we have? We have basically 5 senses that we've learned from a very young child. So I've got 2 eyes so I can see. I've got 2 ears so I can hear. I've got my nose so I can smell. And I've got my tongue so I can taste. And then I've got my skin so I can feel the world outside. Apart from this, we also have 2 more senses, which is the vestibular and also the proprioceptions. What is the vestibular senses? Vestibular senses is the awareness of our body balance and movements, which is monitored by the vestibular systems. So the vestibular sense or the sensations of the bodies. So we sense how our body is rotating. So we are working with the gravities of our bodies. So this vestibular is in the inner ear. So you remember inside our ear it has this shell shape. So these functions of the vestibular sense is also coordinate and relate to the auditory nerves as well. So people who have bad hearings or who are have difficult time hearings would also might have bad balance, or people who cannot hear, they might somehow not be able to balance themselves well. The vestibular system provides information through the inner ear that tells us about our head positions and how or if we are moving. Your understanding of movements and balance helps with the coordinations of the movement in your head. So your eyes receive signals looking at the picture, so your visuals is activated, and then your ears is also help balancing and considered whether you are going too fast or too slow, or you are going too tilted to the left or to the right, kind of. So this system is acting like your GPS system in the bodies. Well, now today, many people relies a lot on the GPS alone. So if your GPS system is broken, maybe it's very so you might get home late. Activities that would target the vestibular systems are something like using rocking chairs or just rocking back and forth, swinging motions, jumping motions, sliding motions, or spinning. So these are the activities that would be also encouraged or enhanced during the play times when we are doing yoga for baby or baby yoga. So by just rocking the baby forward and back, supporting the neck, it's also help actives the vestibular systems. Symptoms of the dysfunctions of these vestibular systems are having difficulty with the attentions and following instruction. Right. Some of us do, right? And delay in speech or language skill. Some may have poor eye controls or having these lazy eyes in for some children. Some might result in having clumsiness. And the most obviously things that you can see is to have poor posture control. And they tend to fall very easily. They tend to trip over very easily. They might have poor hand-eye or eye-foot coordination. So the eye seeing something and then you pick up something else, kind of. And they might be slow or delay in writing or in acknowledging the letters. Instead, when walking on the ground, so they might not be steady when they are walking on the ground. So they might be unable to hold up the air or like going upside down. So they don't like spinning. They don't like to play on the ball. And they don't like tilting head backward, just like in the bathtub to wash their hairs. So they try to stabilize themselves by walking with hands on the walls. So they like to touch things and holding things when they are walk. Some of them might afraid to go downstairs, and also some might seem too obvious to having to climb on the trees or going in a higher zones or staying in a moving equipment. Wow! Now you can have something in your mind to check your students in your class if they are having dysfunctional or the vestibular systems or sense is underdeveloped, and then you can gradually help activate them through the activities that mentions rocking, swinging, jumping, sliding, spinning, but do it very mindfully and control. Oh, by the way, in two realities, for example of these actions, what do you do when a child cannot do backbending easily by using the support and props? So this is how we help to activate the senses, but understand the difficulties that they are facing, but try to encourage them to stimulate or to pass through that phase of unable to complete things. Okay. Proprioceptive sense. The proprioceptive sense is the system that provides information to your brain about your body positions in the relation to your environment. direction you are facing, for example, and how close you are to the obstacle. So these systems also tell you the amount of effort being used to move your bodies and to regulate both emotional responses and the sensory inputs. All children need to learn how to use the vestibular and proprioceptive systems, just like the other five senses as well. So for these systems, it's like you are having the awareness of your joints, or having the feelings of, oops, I'm gonna fail, or oh, that's something on the floor and then I won't kick it. So sometimes not just kids but also us, that we might have underdeveloped these senses as well. Activities that could target or help proprioceptive systems are things like the weight blankets, or having heavy things, or something that is creates tiny little warm hugs or pressures on your bodies. Climbing could also help, and also pushing or pulling, carrying heavy objects, wearing heavier bags, or playing play-dohs with hand sensories, stress ball release, squeeze and release, pressing against the pillows, using box of beans, or paint with the paint brushes, so hold something in the hands, and also suck through the straw. These are activities that could target the proprioceptive sense. Guess what? It could be all in our yoga classes. Yes, basically is to give them exercise, and yoga exercise is also considered as weight bearing exercise as well. These functions of these systems can lead a child to be to seem odd, such as too slow to walk, too slow to move. Okay, no, in the opposite. So it could be resulting in being too hyper, doing things too quickly, or crashing into things oftenly, dropping things on the floor, or seems to be having very poor awareness of where the bodies are, so bump into someone else a lot, or some of them might walking tiptoeing, some of them might chewing on their shirts, and most of them might have shown in having weakened muscles. They also have poor endurance posture, so they might have slumped shoulder, and they tend to not stand up for a very long period of time. They have less tolerance or patience in doing something. They probably move like floppy movements, or maybe move like a robot. All right, walk and walk. Or they when they do the writings, they might hold the pencils too tight or too loose, or the handwriting seems funny. If you can see from the handwritings, they have difficulty judging the force and the distance, and frequently they hit or pushing incidents. So these are things to be looking at when you deal with kids. Apart from these two senses, what connects our bodies to our minds? So when you are giving sensory activities, you activate the nerves, activates the neurons, activates the whole sensory systems, which totally connects to the mind, because our body have receptors. Receptors work with nerves, and nerves connect with our brains, our feelings, and our response to the feelings and environments that we have already discussed in the nerve systems. That's why in yoga classes we have meditations, because meditation can be defined as a practice where an individual uses techniques such as focusing on their mind on a particular object, focusing on their thoughts, focusing on the activities that they do. So these could help them to achieve a mentally clear and emotionally calm state, which relax. Yes, the parasympathetic system is activated through these activities of meditations. Meditation for kids can be some things like thread or doing the garland. So in Thailand we make lots of flower garlands when we were young. This could be one of the activities that you bring into your class. So meditation doesn't mean that you have to really close your eyes and look at inside your body all the time, but a meditative status is when you are consciously acknowledging or aware of something that is going on. So in the 19th centuries, it has spread from its origins to other cultures where it is commonly practiced in private and business life as well. So meditation may be used with the aims of reducing stress, reduce your anxieties, and get to heal yourself from depressions. And meditations has also been proven to help ease your pain and increase your peace and your perceptions, which create the well balance or the well-beings. In doing meditation in the children class, oftenly we do what is called yoga nidra. So it's the yogic sleep. It is the state of consciousness between walking and sleeping. So you are about to going to sleep. So when you close your eyes to relax all the inputs and sensories, but at the same time your brain or your consciousness is still awakened. So when you are shutting down the sense or the inputs that could stimulate you to do some other thing else, by doing yoga nidra and listen to the teachers or listen to the dialogues that the teachers is giving, is also help calming the stress, calming the nerves, while activating the parasympathetics. So when you are doing yoga nidra, maybe try to incorporate other things that activate the sense, like colors or sounds or smell or touch. Our body, our brain, so the actions of our body is the result of the subconscious mind in our brain. When we entered an event, these past events or the past experience is what becomes our subconscious mind. So when we have this past subconscious mind or events, it results in our body reactions and our posture or the way we act to the world. It also results in how we talk and how we deal with the things around us. By activating our conscious mind, it also helps reset or reprogram our subconscious mind. So yoga nidra would be a great idea if you are having a yoga class for children after the normal school days or the after school activities. To end these sessions, I would like to have you look at this slide, which is very nice. It is the emotional chart, and basically it's related to the negative emotions of our bodies. So let's pick some example from these pictures. If you feel tightness or your neck is, remember, lordosis, it would be relations, or it might be related to your emotional state of not wanting to see alternatives, or you are being inflexible towards something. If you have kind of poor posture around the hips, it might be, or maybe swaying hips forwards. It might be because your emotions or your subconscious mind is having fear to move forward, or you are having the fear of the financial situation, for example, and bunions. So many of us have bunions. Bunions could be also the negative emotional effects for not being joyful or not experiencing good things in the life, or not have much joy in your life. So this emotional charge could also help you relate to the physical reactions of the person in front of you, that could relate to their feelings, their emotions. And by practicing yoga alone, it's not just help changing your body structures, but changing the way you feel and changing how you perceive to the world. As the saying said, it is easier to change a person through the movements than to change a person by asking them to forcing themselves to believe in something that they are not. Next sessions we are going to talk about the hormones and growth, especially for the teenagers.